Once Upon a Long Ago, Paul McCartney's Progress, an audio biography, written by Geoffrey Giuliano, narrated by Geoffrey Giuliano.
Tragically, on October 31st, 1956, Mary McCartney died shortly after an operation for breast cancer at Liverpool's Northern Hospital. Paul was only 14, Mike just 12. The week of the funeral, Paul and Mike went to stay with their Auntie Gin, their father having no wish for them to see him so badly broken up. Not surprisingly, after Mary died, life on Forthland Row was far different for the McCartneys. Jim, of course, was now forced to be both breadwinner and full-time housekeeper. Although his sisters Mill and Gin helped out when and where they could, it was still a terrible strain on the 53-year-old salesman. As children, neither of the boys really showed any special interest in music. His first instrument, a low-budget acoustic, soon became the overriding force in his life. It's funny, he says, but everyone remembers their first string box. Mine was a Zenith. I'd no idea where it was going to lead at the time. I just started bashing away and pretty soon had all the basic chords well and truly learned. Then I got a bit more ambitious and bought a solid Rosati, a Lucky 7. It only had 2 strings, and when I played it, it didn't really produce a very melodic sound. But I kept the volume right down, and it seemed okay to me. In an exclusive 1984 interview conducted by this author at a posh Liverpool eatery, Mike McCartney, who after the Beatles' first hit officially changed his last name to McGear, recalled he and Paul's early musical influences.
In our old days, we were flipped out listening to every word, because our kid and I used to be at the Everly Brothers. Listen to every word, every nuance, every sort of feeling to get it exactly right. Little Richard, our kid, did Little Richard, learned it very quickly, and one of the few white people that Little Richard's acknowledged as being a good interpreter of him.
Along with McCartney's interest in the guitar came a growing awareness of rock and roll. Before long, it wasn't just the music that had captured his imagination, but the whole freewheeling rock lifestyle as well. Hopping on board the bus for the dreamy half-hour morning ride to school, McCartney soon made friends with the driver's son, George Harrison, who, like McCartney, was smitten with the guitar. The two soon started hanging out together after school and inevitably began the thankless job of teaching themselves the new chords necessary to carry forward their boyish fantasies of one day playing in a big group. Those fantasies, however, would soon move a major step closer to reality. Paul McCartney's fortuitous first meeting with John Lennon officially took place on July 6, 1957, at a garden fete at St. Peter's Parish Church. That year, as a concession to the basically church-shy teenage youth of Woolton, a local group of lads known as the Quarrymen were slated to appear. Performing mostly covers of well-known rock and skiffle tunes, the 5 young men jived their way through a rapid-fire repertoire of numbers ranging from Maggie May to Railroad Bill and Cumberland Gap. Mixed into the happily swaying crowd that afternoon was Paul McCartney, who'd come along for the day at the suggestion of Ivan Vaughan, a mutual friend of both John and Paul. After the Quarrymen's swinging first set, Ivan led Paul across the road to the band's impromptu dressing room in St. Peter's Church Hall. "This is John," Vaughan ventured upon entering the large, sweltering room. "Hi," replied Lennon. "This is Paul." A rather ordinary beginning, perhaps, but within minutes things heated up when it was discovered that McCartney not only played a pretty mean left-handed guitar, but, wonder of wonders, could actually correctly tune one as well. 2 weeks later, while cycling along Menlove Avenue in Woolton, McCartney ran into Shotton, who offhandedly announced that John had been talking about him and wondered if he would like to join the band. Delicately balancing against the curb on his bike, McCartney reflected for a moment or two and then replied simply, "Okay then, see you," before shoving off back across the golf course to the willowy
Sample complete. Ready to continue?